gives a shit? I suppose that's my groove, but the shit that I give isn't the shit you want me to.
In a few recent videos, I've mentioned the Gnostics and their radical, heretical, some would say, worldview, particularly their vision of the Demiurge. Some of you latched onto this idea, intrigued by the notion that maybe the God worshipped by billions is not a benevolent creator, but rather a cosmic jailer. So, let's dive a little deep. The Gnostics were a sect of very early Christians, mostly in the 1st and 2nd centuries, who rejected the mainstream narrative. They saw the God of the Old Testament, Yahweh, not as a supreme deity, but as a false, deluded tyrant, whom they called the Demiurge. To them, the material world wasn't the work of a loving architect, but a prison built to keep the human spirit shackled. The true God, they believed, was something far beyond human comprehension, pure, ineffable, and entirely separate from this crude world of the flesh, this world of suffering and control. According to text like the Apocryphon of John, the Demiurge was a blind and arrogant ruler, mistakenly believing himself to be the highest power in the cosmos. He was often linked to the biblical Yahweh, especially in the passages where he declares things like, "I am a jealous God, and there is no other God besides me." The Gnostics did not see this as proof of divinity, but rather as proof of ignorance. They viewed the God of the Bible as an insecure tyrant, screaming into the void, terrified of losing his grip. And that's where Gnosis, hidden knowledge, comes in. The Gnostics believed that deep within each human being was a fragment of the true divine God, a spark of divinity trapped in the illusion of the material world. Salvation was not about faith, not about obedience, not about groveling before the celestial dictator. Salvation, rather, was about awakening, recognizing the spark within and escaping the Demiurge's web of lies. This led to some radical reinterpretations of biblical stories. The serpent in the Garden of Eden, not a villain, but a liberator. Adam and Eve were not tricked into sin. They were given the key to knowledge, a chance to break free. The original sin, then, was not disobedience, but ignorance. Naturally, this did not sit well with the early church, because if Yahweh wasn't the true God, if the world itself was nothing more than a prison, then the entire structure of Christian theology, the whole sin, redemption, divine justice shtick, collapses like a house of cards. So, of course, the Gnostics had to be eradicated. Their texts were burned, their ideas were suppressed, their followers were hunted down. And by the 5th century, there were no more Gnostics, or at least their beliefs were driven deeply underground. Literally underground, in fact, because in 1945, the Nag Hammadi Library was unearthed in the Egyptian desert. It was a buried treasure trove of Gnostic texts, revealing a version of Christianity that the church had thought it had erased. These writings, the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, the secret book of John, laid bare a vision of spirituality that had nothing to do with obedience and everything to do with liberation. The Gnostics took their rejection of the material world to the extreme. Some abstained from sex and childbearing entirely, refusing to bring any more souls into the Demiurge's domain. Others, paradoxically, went the opposite direction, indulging in every vice imaginable in an attempt to render the world meaningless, to shatter its hold over them. Either way, the goal was the same: to escape the prison of the Demiurge, just like that ring just escaped my finger. Ugh. Get back on there, you little bastard. I'm your Demiurge. Unlike mainstream Christianity, which promises salvation through faith and submission, the Gnostics sought direct experiential knowledge of the divine, which they called Gnosis. This wasn't something that a priest could give you, nor something you could read in a book. It had to be discovered. It had to be lived. It had to be experienced. And that idea, that hidden knowledge can awaken you, is something that did not die with the Gnostics. It lives on in esoteric traditions of this day, including my own practice of chaos magic. You also see it in films like The Matrix. Now, in chaos magic, gnosis takes on a slightly different meaning. Here, it's not about rejecting the material world entirely. It's about bending it. It's about shaping it. It's about hacking it. Hacking the prison, I suppose you could say. It's about slipping into altered states of consciousness, breaking through the illusion, and wielding reality on your own terms. There's lots of ways you could do this. You could do it through meditation. You could do it through ritual. You could do it through sigil work. You could do it through psychedelics. Whichever method suits you best, right? Gnosis is just about escaping the constraints of programmed perception and stepping into something a little bit broader, a little bit more free, a little bit more liberated. The Gnostics sought to flee the Demiurge's grasp entirely, but the chaos magician, we find the cracks in the system and we exploit them. We don't seek liberation, we seek power, insight, and transformation. So, do I personally believe in a literal demiurge? Not exactly. I don't think the prison of this world was crafted by some cosmic jailer. I think it was built by a much smaller and pettier tyrant, Homo sapiens. The system of control, the hierarchies, the rules designed to keep you in line and me in line and all of us playing the little game, that's not the work of God, malevolent or otherwise. That's just the human animal, terrified of disorder, addicted to the illusion of control. The world feels like a prison because we made it into one. But that doesn't mean the metaphor of the demiurge is not useful to me. Whether you see it as an actual entity, which I don't, or as a symbol of religious dogma, political control, or biological imperatives that keep us chasing suffering, the effect is the same. We are bound to this world. And gnosis is the tool that we use to break free. But remember that freedom isn't granted, it's taken. And the first step is to stop taking this world around you at face value. Where does that leave us? The Gnostics looked at the world and they saw a prison. They saw a false god, an architect of control, a system designed to keep the divine spark of humanity buried under ignorance and submission. So they sought to escape. They sought liberation through knowledge and experience. Chaos magic takes a different approach. We don't seek to exit the system. We seek to rewrite it. The world is an illusion? Fine, because illusions can be hacked. The prison has rules? Good, because rules can be broken. The mistake the demiurge made, the mistake every system of control makes, is believing that its power is absolute. It isn't. It never is. Power only exists if people believe in it. The Gnostics sought to awaken from the dream entirely. The chaos magician, on the other hand, learns to lucid dream, to twist the nightmare into something else, to turn the walls of the prison into doors. That's the real secret. That's the real hidden knowledge. You were never meant to be a prisoner. You were never meant to be small. You were never meant to obey. The world is not what it claims to be. It is yours to shape. So, what are you waiting for? Exactly.
Children of chaos, strike like with the force of 1,000 spells. Inscribe your wisdom in the comments, shaping reality itself. And subscribe lest you fade into the void of ignorance. The algorithm hungers, feed it or be forgotten, so it is spoken.